Hello, hello.
You on?
Hi, everybody.
What's
Hey
going
guys,
on?
good
Check it out.
evening.
We're live. Am
Oh,
We
I
nice.
are.
am I
Hi,
the
mom.
only one streaming us right now on Kumu? Will I be the Kumu
No,
monitor for today?
so yeah, I got
Oh, great.
another phone I borrowed.
By the
So,
way, NextPay, you guys are so popular that we already got our first diamonds even before the show got started.
Awesome.
Yeah, we
Nice.
cool.
got
Thank
them
you.
from thanks
Oh,
Nikki
it's Din.
Datlangin
Hey,
and
Din, San Diego.
oh,
Who's
Hey,
that?
Din, shout out.
Shout out.
Dan.
Oh,
Oh,
Din. I
Shout
think
out,
I
Dan. Okay,
remember.
Din.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
And then also Antonio, Fernando, and Y. Hello. Thanks for the
and
hot
hello pa
dogs.
shout
That's
out.
Fernie. I think that's Fernie. What up,
Yeah.
Fernie?
Shout
Be sure
out.
to
Shout
share it,
out.
guys. This is the time. We're gonna get this started in a couple of minutes, but now's the time to just share on your socials.
Send the
Especially for those
love.
watching. Yeah, share
So,
send over those hearts. Share the live. What up, Don?
Like, comment, subscribe, please.
Hi po to my idol from Siege Ati. Sorry if I'm butchering your
Mhm.
name. Siege
Siege.
Ati.
Siege. Hey, Siege.
hearts. How do you do that?
Dami
Oh,
idols
it's
ah.
right
Hard.
on.
No.
Parang BTS pa na to eh. Stanzo.
Speaking of BTS,
How
did
many
you
how
know?
many viewers do we have right now?
Go.
Wait.
I want to see
Go,
the
go.
army trivia.
Oh no, it is. I mean, it's just kind of cool that you can actually order the Cajun sauce
Oh
on
my
any
gosh.
meal
Ah,
Yes.
yeah.
without actually having to order the BTS meal. So
Yeah.
so for all
Absolutely.
you viewers out there,
For all you viewers out there who needed that kind of wisdom, please
yeah,
please send over some diamonds. That's
yeah, get your chicken nuggets too.
this is really why we're having this episode to give you key life advice such as that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Nuggets
True.
advice, di ba?
Guys,
Okay,
have
I
Ito
shared
yung
on I
perk
shared
of
on mine.
entering early. Kasi like if you enter midstream, you don't get those like nuggets of advice outside of the script.
I
nice,
see what
nice
you
one.
did there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tristan's by the way, Tristan is also on our other show, Rappler Talk, which is basically our very punny show. It's an hour
I
worth
should
of
tune into
puns.
that.
Oh
Okay,
really? Tristan, that's your
that's
next
my
guest.
jam. That's my jam. Like
Yan
Don
na.
and I are quite
Oh,
the fun
Yeah.
guys,
Sige,
Don,
connoisseurs, I
it's
would
gonna be a
say.
I don't get it.
two-parter.
Don, do you support this habit of Aldrich? Or are you like a
Yeah.
face
He
palm?
enables it. We enable each other with
Oh
all
no!
these puns, even during meetings and stuff. They come out. So
Oh dear, how do you guys get anything done? Well, anyway, I'll save that question for later then. Um, okay. I think we're nicely settled in. Tristan, do you think we should get the show started?
Sige, let's ask for some love muna. I want to see those red
Okay,
hearts.
okay, cool.
Yun,
And
meron.
I'm just gonna, there
I
you
saw
go.
them and they came.
Tristan, I think that was you, right? I think you're like, I
Ay,
need a
hindi
heart.
look oh.
Press.
Look mo, no hands, di ba?
Okay, okay. Oh my gosh, thanks for
Oh,
the
you know,
thanks, Dan.
for
Nice.
the
Kulang ka ba?
unbranded horse.
I didn't
horse
even know that
beer.
was a thing. Thanks. I'm gonna use that VG all the time now that I know that exists. And for those of you who have no idea what we're even talking about, we're streaming right now on Kumu, Facebook, LinkedIn Live, and also shared via Twitter. So wherever you're
Yun,
tuning
Twitter.
in, if you have a Kumu account, it would be great to tune in via that because you get to send in questions as this interview comes along, especially if you have questions geared towards our guest NextPay, anything about tech, startups, payments, Aldrich's ponytail. Do you have a ponytail? Is that just me?
yeah, I do.
Questions about Aldrich's ponytail.
We
I get
definitely
do.
need to
more
include that as part of our
Juan.
conversation topics.
Yeah, I got
Oh,
the
okay.
little top knot going.
Top knot. That's
Yep.
what it is. Top knot.
Yep.
There you go. Okay, fellas. I think we're nicely warmed up, and our audience is gonna be in for a treat. Let's get this show started. Hello, everyone. This is Hustle Inside the Industry, where we talk to professionals and find out how they got here, why they're doing what they do, and what it takes to do it. We're live right here on Rappler, LinkedIn, Kumu, Twitter. If you're streaming us on Kumu, please join the conversation. You can send over questions or diamonds if you like what you hear.
And if you're not yet on Kumu, you can download the app. That's Kumu, Kumu. And when you do, make sure to follow Rappler.com. We spell out the .com, so that's Rappler, DOTCOM.
And that's AND. If you like this interview and want to play it back in podcast form, just follow Hustle Inside the Industry on Spotify or any podcast platform. Really, this episode comes out next Monday, August 16. As always, this is Powie.
And this is Tristan. We are part of Raptor's Hustle team. So,
Okay, so
go.
Tristan, I think
That's
we're
pretty
we're
awesome.
making we're making inside the industry history here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have our first return guest, right?
Yes. So, Aldrich, we were talking about this early into the show. So, you are back. So, we
I'm
enjoyed
back.
chatting with you last. What was that? Episode 38?
That was a while
Yeah,
Yes.
back.
38, no?
Yeah, I
Under
remember.
Yeah.
UXPH.
We were
Yes,
like
that's
under
right.
lockdown at that time, so long.
Was it lockdown
But time is a flat
already at
chart.
that
Whoa.
time? Yeah,
It
I
must
can't
have been.
remember
It
now.
must
Yeah.
have been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but awesome. Thanks for having me back. That was a really fun
Yeah.
one too.
And
Enjoyed
and
it.
um and we're excited for Don to join the club now. But anyway,
Yeah. Hey.
this time, as hinted during that episode, Aldrich is here with his company Nexpay. It's a Filipino digital payment startup that's really been making waves. You guys just came out from the Y Combinator program, so congrats on
Congrats.
that.
Thank
And
you
have been
so much.
securing huge funding lately. It's all over the news. I saw it on my feed. So double congrats. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking for now. Everyone, please welcome NextPay's co-founders Aldrich Tan and Don Pansacola. Welcome, guys.
Hey,
It's good
guys.
to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for
Welcome
Thanks
back,
having
for
us.
having
Aldrich.
us. Thanks for having me
Welcome to
back.
the show, Don.
It's awesome.
Really good to be here.
Yeah. So, before we get into it, like before we really start the questions rolling, can you quickly tell the audience what does NextPay do and like what makes it different from other fintech companies in the Philippines?
Sure. Yeah, I can say that. So, what we are is we are a digital banking service for small businesses and entrepreneurs. The idea is that rather than opening up a corporate account in a bank somewhere that has all these requirements, or using your personal bank account or e-wallets, which are great for personal use, but not so much for business use, we want you to open up a NextPay account instead. And using us today, you can sign up for free without any setup costs or minimum balances that you would typically expect in a bank. And then not only do we allow you to kind of open up an account, but you can use us to send digital invoices to your customers
Mhm.
who can pay for it through different payment methods, credit card, e-wallets, etc. And that money makes its way into your NextPay account, which essentially serves as an alternative to a corporate account, or more often than not, the CEO's personal bank account. And then from there, you could use that to pay your employees, pay your suppliers, pay your bills. And so this is money in and money out. And the idea is we want to cover most, if not all, the financial operations of any small
Right.
business.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. I think we got a sense from that alone just how vast like the implications, the applications are of such service. Um, you know, fintech in general, right? We definitely want to hear yours. This is just from my amateur observations, but I feel like it's kind of at like this advent stage here in the Philippines. Like it's really starting to blow up, especially given the pandemic. And yet and how old is NextPay? How many years in the game are you now?
So we started operating in March of 2020. So just about a
Right.
year and a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, given that, right, and you individually having had years of experience as professionals doing, well, we don't know yet. I just wanted to hear you guys out for our audience. Like, how did you each of you individually, first of all, get into tech and like founding a company and going specifically into payments? Which one
Sure.
of you
Maybe
wants to go
Aldrich
first?
can, you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually in user experience design, and so if you search the Rappler archives, we talk about user experience as a whole. But yeah, that's what I've been doing for more than a decade now. I'm really a UX designer by trade, and I also have like an entrepreneurship spirit. So years ago when I met Don back in college, we ended up working together on quite a lot of projects, and even a few businesses together throughout our university career. And then from there, I branched off into working in startups, agencies, and even different environments throughout the US and Canada. Um, and eventually I found myself in a fintech startup as well. It's called Remitly, and what they do is it's overseas remittances. So they help OFW send money back home to their families, and I'm sure a lot of people watching have some family member working abroad that sends money back to them, right? So
Mm.
that's kind of what the overall mission that I attached myself to, and I thought it was an awesome one because enabling Filipinos and to send money back home was awesome for me. But eventually, I guess I wanted to come back home and be closer to that. So, and we can dive more into how Don and I started Nexpay in a bit. But yeah, I eventually just wanted to come back to the Philippines and work on something really awesome and hopefully really impactful. Yeah.
What
Cool.
about you, Don?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So I am a software engineer by trade. I code, I can read code, I can build stuff. But I've also kind of been an entrepreneur most of my life, really, of some degree. Starting from like when I was grade 3, I formed a drawing club, and we sold drawings.
Wow.
All the way when younger or later on older, I would be involved in like a housekeeping company to even just creative
Wow.
agency. I had a creative agency with Aldrich, in fact, for a couple of years
Oh.
as well. So a lot of things, right? But ultimately, in 2000, I ended up working for startups as well. I got to experience what it was like to work for a really fast-paced startup with some of the smartest people in the world, doing internet security. But like Aldrich, I realized that while I had learned a lot of skills in the process of working in Canada, I realized that I wanted to do something more meaningful and impactful with the skills I learned in a place that actually was close to home, well, or literally home, the Philippines, right? Where, in my opinion, there exists real problems like in health, finance, education, even politics, if you want to. So in 2017, that's when we decided to come back and do something meaningful.
Mhm.
So, Bowie, or do you want me? So yeah, you were talking about basically we see how your paths converge. Like you had a lot of experiences, like you're Don, you're a software engineer. Aldrich, you've had experiences in like startups before in fintech. So like how did this all come together in forming Nextpay? Like how did it grow legs? I assume this was pre-pandemic. So parang what was your minimum viable product or MVP? See, I'm talking in startup terms.
Ooh,
Like
there you go.
basically assure you that there's something with this idea and it's like it's the right thing to launch in the Philippines.
Mm.
Right. So, okay, maybe I can start first. Um, well, for me, first and foremost, I was originally born here in the Philippines, and my family migrated to Canada in around 2006, and that was right around the time when Canada was beginning its transition from cash to cashless. I witnessed firsthand as businesses started to accept card payments, tap to pay, and so on. And
Mm.
I saw how convenient it was and how beneficial it was to people and to businesses. And the entire time I kept telling myself, you know what, this is something the Philippines could definitely need. And this was during the time when Gcash was still nascent, as well as Smart Padala was a thing, but PayMaya wasn't even a thing back then, right? So it's always been in my radar to do something related to that in the Philippines. But when we arrived in the Philippines in 2017, we didn't actually do that like immediately. And so I'm gonna pass the baton to Aldrich, and maybe you can take over this part of the story.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. So ayun, same with Don. I was born and raised here in the Philippines. Went to high school here. But we met in Canada in university, right? And I guess over the years of friendship and just working together, we again aligned. We want to do something awesome back home. When we got here to the Philippines, we didn't start NextPay right away. We actually went through a series of projects and innovation design consultancy work just to kind of understand how it is to do business here in the Philippines. Just to understand the opportunities and reacclimate to the culture. And yeah, and so through that, I guess we could also say that we then even just again transplanting here, even starting up here as a citizen again, it was very difficult to get started with the banking landscape. It was so tough to open up a bank account and maintain that, and like everything was not that digital yet, and I mean it still isn't, but it's getting there. So I think we came from we had a bunch of realizations, and then actually NextPay started off with a from a project that we were working on where we were looking into like robo advisory for investing. But then I'm just gonna like give you the
Yeah,
TLDR of
please.
this part. But so we looked into investing, or rather robo advisory. Sorry. So
Essentially,
that's
the idea where you could invest without having to speak to a person, right?
yes, and
Oh.
it would use machine learning and artificial intelligence to tell you, okay, what the best amount or fund to invest is. But upon like researching and understanding the landscape, it wasn't quite right for the Philippines just yet, just because it was really for I guess you could say like the 1% that would use it, and even then, they a lot of the people wouldn't want to dabble on that themselves. They would actually just kind of get somebody else to do it. So we found that the majority of the people, it probably wouldn't be a viable business model. And then upon further refinement and research, we found that, honestly, by and large, most of the Philippines, and I'm sure we could all relate to this at one point, is that people just suck at managing their own finances. We suck with
Mhm.
saving our salaries and all that. So we landed on a concept where we would help Filipino employees and workers get access to their wages on the same day. Fun fact, that's actually where the name NextPay came from. Um,
Mm.
and feel free, Don, to just jump in anytime. But
So it's a
Sure.
yeah,
pun, but it's a pun in a way.
Not quite. But please, you don't want to open that Pandora's box here in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
Ah,
guys,
there
you
we
discussion.
can
go.
if you
Pandora's
follow
Okay.
box.
Oh my gosh.
Gotta
So
calm
just before
down.
I plug in,
fantastic.
if you follow Rappler.com on Kumu, we also have Rappler Talk. So stay tuned. You'll get all the puns you need there. Okay, anyway. Go
Okay,
on.
yeah. So going back to that, we found that maybe like if people got access to their wages on the same day, financial wellness would be a little bit better. The state of people's finances would be a little bit better, because we also found that a lot of people were not able to even make it to work sometimes because they don't have enough left over from their salary to even commute, or they end up scrimping on meals and not eating, because I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the whole pecha de peligro thing. And they get stuck into this vicious cycle, right? And it actually sucks for both employees and employers, because it leads to so much turnover, attrition, and all these costs. So we were thinking around that, but we dialed it back even more upon learning that the realization that that's nice and all, but it wasn't addressing the core of the problem, which is I guess
People's behavior. I
yeah,
can speak to
it's
this.
like financial literacy is not the problem here, right?
Hmm.
Everyone like advocates for financial literacy, which is great, but
Yeah.
most people by and large, they know that they need to save their money and they shouldn't do, overspend. They eventually need to invest, blah blah blah. But the problem really is behavior, that people just don't do it, or they don't know how to do it, and they're not equipped enough. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Yeah. So people generally know what to do. I mean, for the most part, there's like people know they have to have an emergency fund, spend less than they make, invest, get insurance, and yet during payday, at least pre-pandemic, restaurant sales would go up 47%. People complain about being broke, and yet they always have the latest phones. Again, generalization. There definitely are a segment of people who are really stuck in a vicious cycle of debt, and that's a hard problem to solve. But more people than we realize actually have the capability and capacity to leave that situation if it were just a matter of helping them with their behavior, right? Not so much teaching them what to do. And so we built a technology that could automatically set aside money towards their savings goals, like an emergency fund, their bills, their rent, so that the day-to-day painful decision-making process of putting aside money to save is removed, so that they can essentially do it before the money even gets to them, right? So we did that. And in the process, we built a technology that could disburse salaries. But
Mm.
then the pandemic hit, the lockdowns happened, and the businesses whom we were testing this technology out ended up just honing in on the salary disbursement solution we built, because at the time it was almost impossible for many businesses to even just pay their employees to begin with, especially because a lot of them just still paid by cash. A lot of them still had to go to a physical bank to do their transactions, and even employees just getting their money from an ATM machine. Like, how do they do that, right? So a lot of issues that were uncovered, especially because of the pandemic. And so we decided to put the salary management on hold for a bit, and just focus on the disbursement solution for businesses. And then after doing that for a while, we uncovered a few things in that whole process.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
this problem was particularly felt by small and medium-sized companies. Large companies, not really that big of an issue. They had teams, they had the mechanics to be able to figure that stuff out. Small businesses, though, they didn't have access to corporate payroll accounts. They still paid people one by one, either online transfers or cash, or they used personal checks.
Yeah,
Right?
yung
They
mga
used the
envelopes,
personal
I remember that.
Yeah,
Ano pa?
yeah.
Wow.
Envelopes, yeah.
Totally. So really, this is the small, medium-sized companies that experience this problem. But we also realized that it was salary disbursements was just one problem that of many problems that particularly, again, small, medium-sized companies have to deal with. Accepting payments, for example, is an issue, right? I'm sure you've experienced a situation where if you have to pay someone, they give you like a bank account or 4 bank accounts, and then you have to upload a deposit slip photo of it, right? And then
And you
they
can't
have
get
to,
the number wrong if you get one number wrong,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. And here's a hypothetical
hassle.
scenario, right? Say I'm a business owner and I get 10 people who all paid me for something, but I only see like 5 deposits in my bank. I'm like, okay, who of the 10 people actually paid? So there's a tracking
Oh my
issue
gosh.
here.
Yeah.
Very relevant example. Maybe Aldrich, you want to share that thing with the
no,
produce?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear anecdotes.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, it's just a mess, right? Like, everything is done manually. People track things by pen and paper, or
Me.
whatever they can find, really. But for example, during the lockdown, I needed to order vegetables from a vendor, and they were overloaded with orders because everyone couldn't go out. They can go
Yeah.
to groceries,
Yeah.
so they processed people's orders. And I was waiting to pay. I was ready to send money to their account, whichever they said. But I've been following up with them for a few days actually, because they were so overloaded with orders. And then one day I just get a delivery, and then it's my vegetables. I'm like, wait, you didn't even take my payment yet. And they're like,
Wow.
yeah, there's like, okay, hopefully you pay
Kawawa rin,
soon.
no?
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, imagine if that's one
Yeah,
person,
that's so
pero
bad.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
happens rin sa other customers nila.
Exactly, and what more, all the small medium-sized enterprises that really don't have like digital means of managing their money and their finances, right? So you end up losing a lot of time, resources, and effort going down the drain for that. So that was a huge problem.
And here's also kind of like going back to the disbursement thing, which I think is kind of underappreciated. So I'm sure you've experienced this when you join a new company and say you have your own BPI personal bank account, but your employer uses BDO. You have to open up a new BDO account under your employer, right? Just so that you can get paid. And then
We'll
a lot
neither
of
confirm or deny if our current office does that.
yeah. I mean, it's a thing with every bank. Yeah, I just want to be
Yeah,
clear.
no, yeah.
Right. And then during payday, what a lot of people do is they end up withdrawing that cash first thing, and then they deposit it into their personal bank account so that they could actually use it for their personal use. Now, coming from, I guess, seeing like how things are done in Canada, States, Singapore, they provide their own personal bank account, and then you get paid directly in it. So this idea of having to open up a new account just to get paid was so alien to me. I remember Aldrich and we visited a friend's company, and we were just chilling there for the day, and all their employees were gone. And we were like, okay, where are they? Turns out they spent that entire day going to a bank branch to open up an account because they were changing banks. So that was a whole day gone for business operations just because they all had to open up a new account
That's
in a
money.
bank.
That's
Exactly,
money right there.
exactly, right?
I also want to say though, like to Don's situation, the situation Don called out was during the pandemic. This would take weeks for people to open up accounts, and people could not get paid, right? So really, the shift was from like employee wellness to like employee survival. People just needed to get the money
absolutely.
just to survive, right? So we kind of honed in on that.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. And so the reason why I want to bring that up is because with us, you could disburse salaries to any bank and any e-wallet of your employee's choice. Right. They don't, if they have an existing account, they just provide that and they can get paid directly in that account. So that actually has really helped out a lot of our customers. And by the way, what's the alternative to batch disbursing salaries? First, you need to open up a corporate payroll account in a bank, which is a special type of corporate account that has a much, much higher average daily balance, usually in the hundreds of thousands. And only then can you batch disperse salaries to your employees' accounts, only after they open up an account in the same bank, right? So,
And they have to physically go to that branch to open
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
can't
And
do
Yeah.
so
it
with
online.
us, yeah, your own bank, you get paid, you're good to go. And so that's been really helpful.
Wow.
Also for even paying suppliers, right? If you're paying employees, yeah, you can get them to open up an account in the same bank as you, but you can't ask the same thing from your suppliers. So that's also another use case that some companies of who use us actually have really benefited from. So
Wow.
that kind of paints a picture of like all these problems that again you can see small, medium-sized companies deal with. Larger companies, I have no. If I'm a large company, I have no problem getting one of my tech people to connect, payment gateways, APIs to an e-commerce store that we own and link it to our corporate account. But as a small business owner, like what the hell is an API, right?
Yeah,
I don't
of
even know
course.
what that means. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're just building an end-to-end solution. So it's just one place, and they don't need to have to deal with all these things, and it's much cheaper than all these other alternatives.
Yeah, and to
Great.
be honest, like this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of like all the problems that we've uncovered, and we're not gonna jump into those details because we could keep going.
we will. I'm
But
sure we will throughout. Yeah.
Therapy session na
yeah,
pala to eh.
oh
Parang
man,
mga
now we're just
problems.
ranting at this point. We're like, oh my
Yeah.
god,
Yeah.
no, but it just really speaks to how disjointed the overall landscape is here, and how much actual innovation there is, and you'll see this as well in all these other fintech startups and all just other startups
Hmm.
coming up in the Philippines.
Nice. A lot of information there, a lot of useful gems, if you will. So if you can send
Drop those
your own
gems.
gems our way, that
Drop
would be
those.
nice. That's not a pun. That's a real thing that
That's
I'm
awesome.
asking for. You see what I mean?
Nicely done.
But
Diamond. Sorry, that's bad. That's really bad.
but but also again, to everyone out there watching, listening, feel free to comment, show us some love via diamonds, or send in some questions if you have very specific questions for our guests here. For myself, uh Aldrich and Don, you spoke multiple times about kind of the context of the pandemic, and that how that's impacted, of course, the market, and then how it impacted your kind of your direction with this business. Now, we all it seems, Tristan, we have two kinds of companies that we guessed on this show. Either one that like existed for a while and then the pandemic hit and then they had to shift, or two, they came in around 2020, whether deliberate or not, and the pandemic somehow catalyzed um, their kind of like launch into the market, right? So
Mhm.
I feel like you guys are the latter. So kind of, why don't you share with us um, how the pandemic affected how NextPay really came onto the Philippine scene?
Yeah. Let me. Well, I guess I could just like talk a little bit about the overall behavior, right? Because like I mentioned, everything is very disjointed, and we already mentioned how so much of company finances are just done manually, pen, paper, like envelope, check, and cash and all that stuff. But because nobody could leave their homes, and even more traditional businesses were also forced to look at digital means of and digital solutions. Typically, most people didn't want that because there's by and large an overall stigma against like online banking, and people are afraid to do to have their money attached to their phones, right? So
Mm,
people were kind of forced to look into this and adopt this kind of technology, which, like you said, it really helped catalyze our growth, and it gave us the right just the right amount of push for people to start understanding and realizing like, okay, this is actually a viable solution. And that's when kind of their I guess a lot of people's minds were blown, because they were like, oh my god, it's so much easier. I don't have to wave through traffic, I don't have to line up at the ATM, I don't have to deal with any of this checks and paper crap. So it was just it was really really interesting in that sense. And yeah, I think it's just kind of eye opening as well. Just what you can do with technology. Like there's so much innovation happening in that sense. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Don.
I totally agree. I think the pandemic just really made something that was already existing more obvious. The problems that existed, it just made it more obvious, and so it definitely helped our case with our product. Right? We essentially were solving a very specific problem at first, disbursements, that many people just took for granted. People didn't realize it was even a problem. Ganun lang, right? Like the idea of opening up a new account when you get a new job, no one really thought twice about that. That's just the way it's been done for decades, right? And so now, like having, you know, an alternative that doesn't really require that doesn't really require a company to have to get a corporate payroll account and enroll all their employees one by one. That is new to a lot of people. It's just like, oh no, why isn't this still a thing, right? So that kind of is how we essentially, I guess I could say, capitalize on the pandemic, and that we really rallied, against a problem that was just where spotlight was really focused on, whereas in the past it wasn't really a problem many people realized.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was on mute pala. Sorry, I was
Sure.
telling yung papawi nga, parang you came in at the right time in a way, kasi it's like when people were galaxy braining na, okay, this is like the world of digital payments, this is like how you actually transform your business to be more digitally savvy. That's when you were there. Like MSMEs were also trying to become more digitally savvy. At least you already provide a solution. So that's nice to know, no? So my next question, I want to move things forward. So we already talked about MVPs, we already talked about what other letters?
MSMEs.
MSMEs and other acronyms. So let's go to the letter Y.
APIs.
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 So we're gonna release a thesaurus mamaya. So anyway, to the letter Y. So you were part of the Y Combinator, and like we said, we want to congratulate you for like getting a grant from there. So I just want to ask, so like, how was your experience in the Y Combinator? What insights like did you get from that program, and how did it basically lead you to the strategy in scaling your business?
Aldrich, you want to go first for this?
Sure. I mean, I would be lying if I said that Y Combinator did not change our lives. Like it was a really, really awesome program, really difficult one. Like these, I guess you could say like Y Combinator is, world renowned for being able to help kind of accelerate some of the biggest companies in the world, right? And so being a part of that program gave us access to some really world-class mentors and resources and just knowledge in general on how to really operate and kind of build a kick-ass startup. So it was an intense, I guess, 4 months of our lives. It was just like constant hustle, no sleep, whatever fitness is, don't just forget about it. Like things like that, where we just needed to like go heads down and build product as much as possible. And maybe we can also kind of backtrack to how we got into that.
Yeah, please.
That's a fun anecdote. I'll let Don tell a bit about that, but
Okay.
I think just overall with like Y Combinator and even other startup accelerators, right? That it's such a good resource and such a good kind of program for startups to really apply for and try and take advantage of, because it opens up your team, your company to so much opportunity there. So Don, maybe like our beginning journey of YC.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I guess last minute someone recommended we apply for Y Combinator. We weren't really even like thinking we would get in. But you're like, what the hell? Why not? So we applied, and we actually applied late. And the thing about Y Combinator is that they actually have a specific categorization for startups who apply late. Like it actually shows in the top of the application that says your application was submitted late, right? And the reason
for it.
Yeah, they shame you for it. And the idea there was that they have like people who usually screen all the startups, and they typically have a different group of people who screen after the deadline. So they actually suggest to apply before, so you can really have a better chance. But you're like, all right, what the hell? Let's just apply. Submitted late, did it, and then we got scheduled our first interview. We're like, oh shit, maybe there's something here. Like maybe there's actually a chance we might get into Y Combinator. So we I guess prepped for it, and then when we did the first interview, it was like supposed to be 10 minutes, but I think it ended up being like 6-7 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's really short.
Yeah.
These interviews are really intense. They're just like 10 minutes. Question. They don't have room for pleasantries or anything, right?
Yeah. Typically, when we begin calls like this, we kind of like to start with some pleasantries to kind of like break the ice and so on. But they're like, just get straight to the questions. You're like, oh shit, So we butchered it, or at least I think we butchered it. It really felt like it. Like after that first interview,
Ouch.
yeah, Aldrich and I were like, oh shit, no, like, oh, it is what it is.
Well, tomorrow.
Yep.
And it happened at 3 a.m. I think, or 4 a.m.
It did, yeah,
because it was Pacific time. Yeah,
that's right. And so, but then like at around 4-5 somewhere there, I got an email saying, "Hey, would you be able to come in at 8 in the morning for a follow-up interview?" I was like, "Aldrich!" I was trying to call him, but he wouldn't pick up. He was at the time in Cebu, right? And I
Yeah.
think he was already passed out. I think it was your birthday also, right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
Gonna passed out.
Oh no, yeah, yeah. I was
Yep.
out
And
That's a
so,
great birthday. That's a great birthday. Some
yeah,
diamonds
but
for that, please. Anyway.
fortunately, they were kind enough to allow us to move that second interview to essentially uh, to January 5th, if I recall, of this year. So same thing. We did the interview at like 2 in the morning, and once again, it was very short, and we butchered it.
Okay.
At least it
Or
felt
so
like
we
butchered
thought.
it.
I
Yeah,
think
but
like
again,
audience is kind of like wondering where when they're gonna
You
get
take away
inspired. But anyway,
butcher your interview.
they're like,
okay, no, okay. But here's the
yeah.
thing,
Anyway,
right? We
go on,
are
go on, go on.
obviously our worst critics. And so to us, we butchered it. To other people, we may have slayed it, right? But it's also, they're dealing with many, many startups. And so they get straight to the point. So even if to us, it might have seemed like they were not very happy, to them, it's just like, okay, we just got to get straight to the point, ask the questions, no
Got
BS,
it.
right? So that's
Mhm.
probably what also happened.
Yeah.
Anyways, we were asked to stay awake just in case there would be another follow-up interview, and we kind of missed out on that the first time. So we're like, okay, let's stay awake. So we stayed up all the way until like 8 in the morning. No call, no nothing. And then we're like, okay, I guess it is what it is. And that's how we didn't get into it. Just kidding. So at 12 noon, we actually got a call, and yes,
12
they're like,
noon. Oh my gosh.
you're in. So I was like, fuck yeah. And I was like, oh shit, sorry, pardon my Tagalog.
Yeah.
And I guess right after that, literally on the same, was it the same day?
Yep.
We had to do 5 consecutive days of just boot camp work. So this would happen like in
Yeah.
midnight onwards. And we were completely unprepared for it. We didn't get enough rest between that. And even like
Yeah.
our business, managing our own business, we were kind of like, shit, we're in Y Combinator now. This kind of changes our whole
Yeah.
trajectory by
Yeah.
a lot, like
Yeah.
completely unprepared for it. So we, I guess the rest would be history in regards to how we got into YC.
Fantastic. Yeah. No,
We
I
were
think
living
that's,
in a different time zone for a while, so that was
Yeah.
rough, but totally worth it.
Yeah,
that
I
happened.
did want
That
to.
was just a couple of months ago, right?
That
Yeah,
was
January.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess let me quickly add onto these interviews now. Like, I mean, they obviously screen you for your business model and your idea, but they also take a look at your founders. Like they want to know if the founders know the space well enough, who they or how they are as people, and if they think that you have, I guess, the drive or the grit to really sweat, and build a really kick-ass startup. And obviously, there's a large percentage of even YC companies that don't make it past a certain point.
Sure.
But that's exactly the nature of startups and accelerators, and they, as well as all these other accelerators, recognize that, right? So, yeah, and they also recognize. I mean, it took a little bit of education in the sense. Now we needed to say, okay, look, the Philippines, it's really that bad. The banking landscape is really that bad. So it took a little bit of that and convincing for them to really see that the potential in what we're doing.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that way those that are giving you opportunities are giving them to those in need, the economies in need, because they'll be a part of like something that can shift an entire landscape, so to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a lot of love on Kumu throughout that whole story. Shout out to
Nice.
Anna Sasaki. who
Hey, Anna.
Hey, Anna.
said- There you go. She said, "I love how Filipino startups are targeting to solve real life problems, but with a heart." Amen. That's basically an apt description of Filipino startups these days. We also got some diamonds from Simply Via, Laika Salazar Galbo, and Alish Toddle. Shout out to that name, Alish Toddle.
Alish,
prefer-
hey, Alish.
Oh, there you go. There's
It's
your
fun.
friend.
Oh, it's a
It is a pun. It is
Yeah.
a pun. I
Alish
prefer
Toddle,
counter.
Plato. I prefer Plato. I
Once
couldn't think
upon
of
at a
good
time,
pun for
guys.
that. There you go. Okay, thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
I'm just playing. I'm playing. I low key appreciate them. Anyway,
Yeah, you do.
uh, so we mentioned earlier about like the context of fintech in the Philippines, right? and again, just how vast the landscape is. And I want to paint a clear picture to everyone listening, right? Just because NextPay is a fintech company doesn't mean you're competing with all the other fintech companies. In fact, you're probably catering to like different needs. So we wanted to ask you. Oh, and also I just wanted to insert another anecdote in a word. Another example of like a fintech company with a model I haven't heard of until I heard about it was Afterpay, which just got bought, I believe, right, by Jack Dorsey, or got invested. Just got a huge investment from Jack
Mhm.
Dorsey of Square
Yeah,
and
the
Twitter.
whole buy now, pay later model, it's
Yeah,
definitely coming up there
so
for
that's
sure.
like already like so anyway, needless to say, there's like a lot of room in this space. So we wanted to ask you, what would you say is like the current state of fintech? I'm sure it's different than just last year, right? So what's the current state of Filipino fintech, and where do you see NextPay like playing a particular role in that wider spectrum?
Sure, I can answer that. So it almost seems like there's a new fintech company being founded every day. You see it in the news, you see it, oh, new startup gets funding, etc. And because it is a really hot space, and you could see how the world is transitioning from cash to cashless. And with cashless brings a huge opportunity to do many things with it in creative ways. Buy now, pay later being just one of them, and even just digital banking would be like where we are
Yeah,
at. There's a lot
yeah,
of
that's where we're
opportunities
at.
there in itself, right? Um, so I think the space is huge. There's definitely room for a lot of players. In fact, in the Philippines, if you actually really see what happens under the hood in the fintech landscape, it's almost incestuous in a sense that they are all kind of intermingling and using each other's services, right? We use some of the fintech services of like we use some of the services of other fintech players, and vice versa. We know like big banks also use some of the other fintech solutions of these. So it's very interesting where we're all kind. It seems like we're competing, but in many ways we're also cooperating. So maybe the word there would be competition or frenemies. And but
Oh,
ultimately it
those are
means
good
that
puns, by the way. Good use
they're
of
not
those.
mine. I wish they were mine though. Those are great. Yeah. But ultimately, the idea is that the tide rises for everybody. And you know what? In the Philippines, there's a lot of room for growth. 2/3 of the country remain unbanked. If you're to look at the business banking, there's like 5% at most who have bank accounts, right? And even that's just banking. If you were to look at all the other like digital payments, buy now, pay later, even or rather credit cards, there's a very, very small penetration for credit cards over here in the Philippines. And also, given the idea that everyone has, or not everybody, but smartphones are like hugely adopted here in the Philippines, more than many countries in the world, right? We're known as the social media capital or selfie capital, more,
Mhm.
and so this
Ironic,
like exactly, and a smartphone can technically behave as a bank in itself. You can have a bank in your pocket, right? So what do we see though in the future, given everything I said? I think that given all these fintech solutions that exist, the problem still is it's very fragmented. You have to sign up for the service here, use it. You have to sign up for the services, this other service there, etc. But what if there was something that could essentially unite everything, and what is commonly known in the industry as super apps? So you can see that with Grab, where you can do so many different things under one app. You can see that with Gcash, where you can do so many different things under one app. And I think that's kind of where the future is for really fintech in general, where you'll have a single app that can really do everything, right? It's all being consolidated under the hood. And it's just a matter of like who gets to be that player, and is there room for other players? Maybe it could be um, like a Zapier type of approach, where you're not necessarily building an app that does everything, but you're building the glue for all these other apps so that they could all work together, right? So different ways, but ultimately, people, I think, generally, especially the less tech savvy people or the late majority crowd, would not want to have many apps, one for each. They'd rather just focus on one or use one
Mm,
app that can do everything. So that's
Yeah,
where I think the
actually,
future.
it's worth noting that the whole super app, I guess phenomenon is way more apparent in Southeast Asia or just Asia in general, um,
true.
compared to
The
out in the
West.
West. Yeah, yeah, it's just so interesting. Like
That's
everyone just
true.
wants the convenience all in one place. So, yeah, just taking a look at
Yeah,
that.
like Grab now is venturing into payments as well. There you go.
That's right.
Like Grab
That's right.
Pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's nice that you mentioned that because like I've been mentioning Galaxy Brains since earlier in the episode, but like now that you mentioned like the concept of super apps, like the future of the landscape is in like super apps. Like, oh yeah, it all makes sense, and that's basically the landscape here in Southeast Asia. So aside from the future of startups, I want to know what's the future for you specifically for NextPay. So what's the future for NextPay, if you mind sharing?
Super app. No. Well,
NextPay
after
super app.
laying all the groundwork, I'm
Sure,
like, yeah, I
okay.
guess it has to be super app. Come to think of it, no.
Yeah. I can get my food from NextPay. There we go.
No, okay. Well, here's the thing, right? I think obviously there's a
True.
limit of what your app can do. It doesn't make sense for us to get into certain spaces, even if it's in fintech. Like, I think we're not really interested so far in the consumer space. I think the business space, there's a huge market in itself, and I think we're kind of okay with focusing on that. But obviously, I don't want to. I'd like to kind of be excused if we change our mind later on down the road. But for now, we're really focused on business. And there's a lot of enough problems and a huge enough market that we're okay with sticking here for a while. But definitely disbursements and invoicing is just the beginning. But you can imagine all the other things we can introduce to our customers, with these things as like the basic features that we are launching with.
Yeah, and I guess it's again worth noting that employee wellness really is still our North Star. So eventually, we want to be able to help more and more Filipinos get to financial wellness and help them save more money, and actually put their money towards things that will help
Hmm.
the quality of life overall. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
to be
maybe
clear,
you will
Abangan.
no
end
super
up
app.
circling
Yeah,
back.
super app. Ano pa?
Yeah,
Down the line.
yeah. Yeah.
and
So
online
basically,
dating. We could probably include that somewhere. Like,
yeah. Let's throw it
Yeah, yeah.
in.
just throw it in
Next.
there.
Next.
Throw it in there. Why not? Why not? Saving and dating, right?
Saving and
Anyway,
dating.
there you go. This tagline. Just pay me for that. I'll invoice you later. Um,
Be
anyway,
an expert.
but yeah, actually, to that point, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think what I gathered also from this conversation, I think it's fair for you to have that focus on small businesses, because what I will say is what I've learned from this pandemic is the Philippines seems very seems like a great market for prosumers, if you will. There's like a lot of small business, a lot of people getting out there, whether they're just individual vendors. So I can see even with your focus on that supposed niche, you're still catering to a very uh, broad customer base there. Anyway, on that note, we're wrapping this up now. Any last bits of advice, especially for people like we just mentioned, small business owners, or even for aspiring tech founders such as yourselves?
Yeah, Aldrich, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I have a few for aspiring founders or even current founders, right? Um, Maybe let's start with, if you have an idea, try and validate it first. Don't go ahead and invest all these time, resources, and money into building it and not talking to actual customers and finding out if they actually will pay for it or use your product. So you can kind of read into like the whole lean startup model where you really develop MVPs first before going all out on that.
There's
So you're
Denny
gonna save
said it.
yourself. Yeah, MVPs. So that's one, and another is aside from, this is something that we do in Nexpay consistently, right? And we do a lot of customer development, which is we really
Talk
talk
to
to
your
our customers.
customers.
Yes, we always talk to our customers. We always get feedback from them, suggestions, ideas, and they love us for it, and we love them for it. And I guess the one more thing, among tons of nuggets of advice, um, is to get involved with your community. This is always my advice, even like with aspiring designers from our previous podcast. I was always going to say, get involved in the community. Right now in the Philippines, there's a really big startup community, and everyone's really like so gung ho to rally and support each other and build the next great thing. And you're seeing even more Filipino startups actually entering YC. So stay
Yeah.
tuned, because they're going to be announcing that soon, right? So by and large, we're all moving up together, and that's awesome. So if you're in tune with the community, you learn from other founders, you get the resources, you work with them, you're going to be all the much better for it.
Sinigang Valley, right?
Yep, Sinigang Valley, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Those are good ones. I definitely concur. For me, I would I would say first, the understand the value of skill stacking. So, what is skill stacking? It was actually first introduced to me. I don't know if he coined the term himself by Scott Adams. He is actually the author of the Dilbert comics, but he's also a
Oh,
really, really good
yeah.
business person, right? And the idea of skill stacking. First, the premise is you can be a really, really good software engineer, but you can forget about being the best software engineer. There's always, with 7+ billion people in the world, there's always going to be someone who's better than you. You can be the best doctor, or you can't expect to be the best doctor or the best designer or the best salesperson. There will always be someone better than you. But you can be a good doctor and a good software engineer, but the combination of both is what gives you the edge. And that's what I mean by skill stacking, where you stack different skills, and the combination of these skills are what make you actually very like competitive in the market of all these different skills. So rather than focusing on one thing and being really good at that, although that's always a good thing, what's more important is to actually widen it, and the combination of the different skills, even if they're unrelated, may end up actually giving you an advantage and may also lead to very novel business ideas. Like if you can imagine, what can cooking and musician be? I don't know yet, but being creative, you can probably come up with some business that utilizes both skills, right? Which, if you're a cook alone or if you're a chef alone, you probably wouldn't be able to do the same thing that someone who's a chef and a musician. So skill stacking. Second would be tell the truth. And when I say tell the truth, not just to people around you, but more importantly to yourself, because many people, they lie to themselves. They are delusional, or they think they don't admit the things that hurt to themselves. Like, okay, maybe this business idea is really not a good idea, right? That I think is super important, that you got to tell the truth to even yourself. And related to that, be pragmatic, where you got to understand, okay, is this realistic? Do I have enough savings to actually work in this business without getting any pay for an extended period of time? If not, what can I do? Maybe being super pragmatic is super necessary. And I think many people get into entrepreneurship without actually realizing these truths. And lastly, I think for me, this is most important, would be curiosity. Many people, they ask themselves, like they encounter a question like, why is that like that, Kia? Oh, well, and then they continue on their day. When really, Google is at your fingertips, or DuckDuckGo is what I would suggest, where you could just search for anything that comes to mind, rather than stopping with a question, leaving a question unanswered. Why not just have it answered? And if you build that muscle of curiosity, and on top of that, satiating that curiosity, you end up learning, and you get that dopamine hit every time you quench that sense of curiosity, and it ends up cascading into just being a beast of a learner. And that ends up letting you know so many random things, which also allows you to skill stack better. So that's where I would say
Wow.
my advice is.
Wow.
Well,
I'm kind of
lastly, follow
reminded
your
of
Got a
dreams.
master class there.
I'm kind of reminded of like the Steve Jobs story, like calligraphy, and how he like learned calligraphy, and then that led him to like developing fonts, like connecting the
Mhm.
Yeah,
dots after
you never
that.
know
Yeah.
where it could connect, right? Yeah.
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 Well, I was gonna say,
Another thing,
Tristan,
like,
it looks like I guess we're skill stackers, Tristan. That's a euphemism for what we are then.
yeah. I was gonna say one more thing is to follow your dreams. Just kidding. Don't. The more pragmatic advice there is to follow your North Star as a startup founder. So, what is your company's North Star? Not your dream, because they may not be the same thing. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
So
Well,
mag-artista
okay.
na ako after this.
You
Like, or mga model, like follow.
Yeah.
yeah. And then when you dream about it, you're gonna realize that Aldrich said, "Don't follow your dreams," and then you'll just revert back.
Yeah. There you
Okay.
go. Burst that bubble.
Actually,
Anyway.
show na ako. Anyway,
speaking of random things, as Don mentioned, and fun random things to engage your brain, we're gonna wrap things up now with our play of the week. We talked a lot about work. Now let's talk about play. Any fun activities and recommendations for our listeners to unwind from the busyness of business?
The business
Let's
of
go first.
business.
Busyness of business. Yeah. Here. So, like I think one thing, because most people are kind of cooped up at home right now, and we're stuck. We don't get to be as social as we want to. So I mean, if you're feeling that I guess that anxiety of just being stuck at home, not seeing people, then go online and get engaged with the community. That's one thing. Attend online events. That's kind of how I was able to also kind of let loose a little bit, just to meet people, because I feed off of that energy personally, as an extrovert myself, right? But I would also say, just do what makes you happy, like gaming. I play games every so often. I also still somehow manage to find time to binge watch shows with my girlfriend on Netflix. And then, yeah, and then meditation's always a good thing.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
You want to
Um,
squeeze in a
yeah.
gaming rec, by the way? What's the latest game
Yes,
you played?
please. Yes, please. Gaming
Oh,
Yeah, I'd love
Rex.
to hear.
what's that? The Deep Rock Galactic is a really fun one. It's that four-player one where you're all like space dwarves and you're mining stuff and
What?
you're fighting all these
Deep Rock
aliens. It's a
Galactic?
really, really good co-op. It's
Is it
really
on
well done.
Steam or is it
It
a
is definitely
console?
on Steam. So
Okay.
Deep Rock Galactic is one, and a really stupid, mindless, but really fun one that we've been playing is Chivalry 2. So
Oh,
you get to,
Chivalry.
yeah, you
Yeah.
just get to like swing swords and spears and shout, and it's really mindlessly fun.
Awesome.
For Mordor.
Done.
All
Fun.
right. So I guess for me, thanks for that. So, fun fact: Aldrich lives in the same building, like how many floors down, right? So, so so that means I actually do get to see him in person every now and then. So every week, once a week, he comes up here as well as another friend, and we just hang out. And we typically watch a show. So the show that we've been watching over the last couple of weeks is a Korean documentary called Startup. And
Yeah.
Tell a documentary.
it's a
I was
Good
like,
documentary.
boy or
where is he going with this?
good
Yes.
boy or
Good boy or
Namdosan. Namdosan.
Good boy.
right, yeah. So no, it's very educational. It teaches you, like when they mention words like angel investor or MVP, it actually shows in the bottom, although I can't understand it because it's a Korean, but it supposedly shows what it
Like the
means, right?
glossary. Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anime does that too. Yeah.
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 So definitely learned a lot from that. And
Excellent.
educational. Yeah. So that's what we do.
Tristan.
Yeah, startup. Excited ako kasi I caught that last year. So actually, to be
I'm
honest, the things that you
just
mentioned
getting around
today, like the MVPs, the other APIs, I caught it from startup. So yeah,
There
see,
you go.
Oh, there you go. See, it's a
Exactly.
documentary with a lot of slow motion
We're
and
K
grabber
drama
shots.
fans. Send those
Yeah.
diamonds. There you go.
it's Red Velvet pa, Red Velvet pa yung soundtrack. So
Okay.
so
Tristan,
for,
what's yours?
sige. So for me, I finally got the book that we guested last week, Tingle.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the
Nice.
anthology of Pinay lesbian writing. So
Whoa,
we
cool.
guested Joanna Cruz, as well as two authors, Sigrid and Jenny. So I finally got the book. So I got it yesterday. I
Nice.
haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to read it. And then this week I ordered part of my 8-8 haul is that
Mm.
Junji Ito.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
got this
yes.
Tommy.
Nice.
Yeah, his Tommy collection. So
Okay.
Tommy, it's basically parang I realize Girl from Nowhere, the show on Netflix, it's basically the same concept.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this anthology where each episode there's this like mysterious high school girl who basically
Oh
brings
yeah,
out
this
the
is
worst
Tommy.
yep,
Yep.
in people, yeah. So
Okay.
without spoiling much, that's basically it. So Tingle and Tommy.
I gotta
Fantastic.
look into that. Yeah, for sure.
I guess Tristan and I are switching roles for this one because he's got the books and I got the video game. This one I think is like up Aldrich's alley. I'm kind of like a little particular with my particular games, especially the amount of time I hang out with Tristan because Tristan's a very hardcore, like console gamer. A lot of adventure games on his and that come my way, and sometimes I can't really like commit. Like I was playing God of War for a while, and it's super
Yeah.
fun, but I haven't gotten to that point where I just I need to play it. I'm
I
I
not
mean, it's just like straight up button
I'm-
mashing, but like
Yeah.
all the blood and gore, and it's
It's
satisfying as
fantastic.
hell.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic for sure. But
Super.
I have been playing a new and a much smaller game that was actually developed by Gearbox that my friends got me onto, which is Tribes of Midgard. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've heard
one.
of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
So
Heard of it.
isometric, so like top down. It's kind of like for you RTS real time strategy Warcraft people. back in the day. It's kind of like a tower defense type,
Mm.
where you're with your friends. You can even take different classes. You level up, you gain armor and stuff, and it's just you kind of have to survive numerous days. But what's cool is they like integrated like bosses and stuff. Like you can go exploring and have an RPG adventure within that time, and it's usually like a 90-minute session if you get enough friends. So yeah, Tribes of Midgard, and
Do-
also
Is
yeah,
that on PC console?
yeah, I think it looks like I was complaining about. I actually thought about you. I was complaining about the UX yesterday. I was like, why this? It's not selecting what I wanted to select. They're like, oh yeah, they developed it for PC first. We were
Dude, have
playing
you
it on
heard of
PS.
RimWorld?
That's hilarious.
RimWorld, what's that?
Oh my goodness, I think you'll love that game
Is
if you
it
like Tribes of
Grimworld
Midgard.
or RimWorld?
RimWorld. It
Okay.
is a tower defense base building resource management
Oh,
RPG.
it's
Pretty crazy.
space style.
It's on
Yeah, yeah. You
Steam.
should.
So Tristan,
Yeah.
I think this might be a little more my vibe, but the social I will clarify that the social aspect is a big thing for me, which is why I think
Okay.
the one player games I don't feel particularly tied to. But like when you're playing with your friends and you beat the game and stuff, like that's a
Yeah,
whole
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
uh,
I have one recommendation if you're a
okay.
social player,
Here we
and
go.
this is
Game.
gonna. This okay. This is something if you can gather 7 other people.
Oh
The
my god.
Forest. The
Yes.
Forest. Like
Oh
hands
wait,
down,
okay. I think
the best cooperative game we've ever played. Aldrich and I and a
down.
bunch of friends.
Okay. The
I
forest.
won't spoil
Okay.
anything, but it's
just
crazy.
just
Yeah.
look into it. The Forest.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my
It's
gosh.
really
Yeah, I
fun.
know this. I saw this
I
before,
know
but
this.
I haven't tried it.
Survival
It's
games
really
are
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm not a huge fan of like crafting or anything like that because I don't want to do chores online
yeah.
after I work all day. But this one's not bad. This is very very tolerable. Plus the whole storyline and just the fun aspect with your friends makes a really really unique experience.
Nice. Okay,
I'm
we
seeing
definitely got our
screenshots and I like it.
Tristan. I think we have like 2 months worth of plays of the week, so we're set. We'll see you guys in
We're gonna cut it up.
next year. Yeah,
Anthology. Play of the week
yeah,
anthology.
yeah. But anyway, guys, sad to say, that we are at the end of our interview. But before we
That's
let
sad.
you go, last plugs for our audience. How can they keep up with you guys and NextPay? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So right now, if you sign up for NextPay, you can take advantage of our free disbursements. So just to give back to the community to show that we care about the plight of small businesses, especially as we enter this new lockdown period. We're giving all disbursements for free. You can pay your employees without being charged, and so please go take advantage of this. Check it out, as well as
Nexpay.ph.
nextpay.ph. Right.
Yeah.
So because of the ECQ. Now, another thing also is we are hiring. If you go to our website, check the careers page. We're definitely looking for really talented people who would love to work in something that along the lines of helping small businesses or interested in the problems that we're solving. So we'd love to work with you. Please check it out and go apply.
Yep, and
Nice.
I would also say to all the other MSMEs out there, we're open to partnerships and collaborations. Again, we are of the idea that rising tides lift all boats, and we want to help empower you guys and give back to the community there. And of course, we share what we gain together. So go check out the NextPay website and all the social channels. And also, actually, last thing, sorry, we do host a lot of or are starting to host more and more webinars. This is really targeted towards MSMEs in their journey to digitalization and helping them manage more of their finances better, even HR practices. Because we're doing a lot of pretty cool stuff in our team, and we want to share those practices with you guys, with everybody out there too.
So that can be accessed on your website.
Yes, sir. And all the social channels of NextPay.
Fantastic. So we'll look out for it. But that's it. Thank you guys so
It's been
much.
fun.
Best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Um,
Don. Thanks, Aldrich.
Aldrich, maybe you'll be our first 3-time guest. Whatever else you got.
Hat trick. Let's do it.
There you go.
Do it. Yeah.
Found something now. Okay. All right.
Thank you guys.
And
That was awesome.
we also wanted to obviously thank our Rappler's production team, which always gets this show running on time, our community team as well, and our creatives team, and most especially everyone out there for watching on whichever platform and listening. If you haven't already, please follow Rappler on all platforms. You can catch us on Kumu by following Rappler.com, and you can follow the Hustle Inside the Industry podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We bring you a new episode every Monday, so you can start your week with a little motivation. All right, that's it.
Thank you,
Awesome.
guys.
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Shout out to the
Really fun
Nextpay
being here.
team.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, bye, guys.